Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Freeman, Jessica-Freeman, and I've been living in Lincoln for the last 6.5 years. I'd like to testify to 2 points today. 1, women who want a home birth are going to have home birth. And number 2, to have a safer home birth, women should be supported in their search to find a legal attendant for their home birth. I have borne 3 beautiful children. My first was a fairly typical hospital birth with an OBGYN in Syracuse, New York. When it came time for my second, I had started reading everything I could get my hands on about birth, midwives, and home birth, and I was determined to have a home birth. I found 2 lovely midwives who came and supported me throughout my labor at home. My first home birth was a truly empowering experience and ended with a very healthy and intact family. Shortly afterwards, we moved here to Nebraska, where I quickly learned that midwives were either barred completely or severely discouraged from attending home births. Within a few months of arriving in Nebraska, I was already dragging my 3-year-old daughter and my infant son to the Capitol to pass out information and M&Ms requesting the senators to change the laws regarding midwives in Nebraska. 6 years later, I'm still pounding the pavement at the Capitol. My children are older, and they have been joined by a brother who was born at home in our bathtub. I'm not someone who is comfortable being by herself during birth, so I managed to find an experienced person to come and support me during my 3rd labor, and all ended successfully again. I've attended the hearings for the last 2 times this bill has been introduced to the Health and Human Services Committee. Each time they listen to this bill, they question how safe home birth is. My question for them is, how safe is it to continue to deny families access to trained professional attendants when they choose to birth at home? Home births will never be a large percentage of births in Nebraska. However, each year, the statistics report an average of 100 out-of-hospital births occurring here in Nebraska. This year, we know that at least 58 of those births were planned to be at home. That is 58 families who are birthing alone without assistance, importing a midwife from somewhere else who may or may not be arrested before they are able to give birth, or otherwise taking a risk with a birth attendant who may not be qualified to help them. I have a friend who has been attending people's births lately. She feels that if she does not attend these births, these women will be alone if something goes wrong, and she would rather be there to help them. I would rather that she didn't have to help them because they would have a legal option. Doctors are legally able to attend home births in Nebraska, but for whatever reason, they don't. They probably don't have time to wait patiently at home with a woman while she labors. They are not exposed to natural unmedicated birth, and they wouldn't know how to assist at a home birth. That's the great thing about certified nurse midwives. They are trained to deal with normal birth in normal environments, including the hospital and at home. They are trained to recognize emergencies and forward those emergencies to the appropriate experts for further help. They are trained to handle any minor incidents that could result in emergencies in the wrong hands. For instance, cervical lips, placenta delivery, or helping the baby get a good start breathing and or breastfeeding. Best of all, they have protocols to follow to help birth be safer at home or in the hospital. Most emergencies that happen at home are not like the emergencies that happen in the hospital. Emergencies in the hospital often involve Pitocin, epidurals, causing fetal hearts to crash, and if the baby isn't surgically removed quickly, the baby will die. Home births are very different. Emergencies that happen at home are much more likely to develop slowly with lots of warning signs that there is usually plenty of time to transfer a mother to a nearby hospital if things are not going well. That can only happen when the mother is being supervised by a trained and qualified professional who knows how to help her. Birthing at home is not a decision taken lightly by most families. With both of my home births, the first topic discussed with the midwives was the plan of action if something were to go wrong, and the realization that once in a while things can go very wrong. This is a discussion I did not have with my hospital birth, because at the hospital they promise that everything will be fine if you follow the dictates of the doctors and the hospital staff. Ironically, the doctors then take full control of the birth in the hospital and often cause riskier births through their many interventions and protocols. It makes me sad to hear about the frightening close calls that happen in hospital births every day. I also worry about the mothers who choose to avoid the hospital and are then forced to birth by themselves or with unqualified attendants. Personally, I will choose to have any future babies at home because once you've educated yourself about your options, you generally don't change your mind just because one of them is harder to achieve. Please help myself and all the women in Nebraska who choose a home birth to have a safer home birth by passing LB 428 out of committee and allowing us to have certified nurse midwives legally able to attend us at home.
Questions for Ms. Freeman? Senator Crawford?
Thank you, Senator Campbell, and thank you for your testimony. So your
second birth was with a certified nurse midwife. Is that correct?
I believe she was a certified professional midwife, but she was trained in England and she was practicing in New York at the time.
Oh, okay. Now, could you tell us just a little bit about that planning? You mentioned briefly in your testimony that you made some plans for emergency. I mean, was this something you sat down and planned together?
Yeah. The first thing that they do is they sit you down and they say, these are the things that are likely to go wrong in a home birth. This is what we will do. If this happens, we will give you this herb. If this happens, we will be going to the doctor. If this happens, we'll be, rushing you to the hospital. So they always had a plan. They brought oxygen for the baby. Sometimes the baby doesn't breathe right when it comes out, so they have oxygen. They had supplies to stitch me up. I tore a little bit when I had the baby, and they stitched me up afterwards. And so they have basic supplies that help make the birth safe. And then they also have a plan of action if something were to go wrong that was more serious.
And was there any other communication or any other health provider involved in those discussions or prenatal visits?
Usually, midwives like to recommend that you develop a relationship with a doctor as a backup in case something goes wrong. So with both pregnancies, I did have an appointment with a doctor beforehand, and he was aware that I was going to do a home birth.
Did he have any role in talking to you about that plan with the midwife as well, or?
Not specifically. I mean, they definitely say, are you sure you know what you're doing? Have you done your research and things like that?
Right. So, and then if something were to happen, you had to go to the hospital, then this other doctor would have been somebody who knew your case and would be able to come into the situation at that point.
I believe the plan was to call the doctor as soon as he would need to be involved and then meet them at the hospital.
Okay. Thank you.
It was a while ago.
Any other questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.